Hello, my friends. This is Dr. Angelica Christie, your host of the show, Your Radiant Life After 45. It's a show for women who want more from life, who are not done living yet. And we talk about health, we talk about relationships, we talk about spirituality, and everything that is important to have to create a radiant life, because the second part of your life is at least as important, if not more important than the first one. So, and today I have an amazing lady with me, somebody I know for a couple of years, but I just got to know even better lately, and I always admired her. Her name is Elizabeth Wilson, and she is an ontologist and a speaker, a spiritual advisor, and the author of the book, The Sovereign Way to God. She has spent the last 3 years journeying through Alzheimer's with her dear mother, Jane. And through heartbreaking challenges and sweet moments of magic, the two women have explored and discovered many alternative methods for reversing major symptoms and enhancing quality of life. So, this is kind of the overview. Is the title of this is really My Friend AL, How to Enjoy a Positive Journey with Alzheimer's. So without further ado, Elizabeth, thank you for being here on this show, and thank you for talking about such a very, very important issue that is important to speak about, because this is skyrocketing and we don't know enough about it. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. For example, an Alzheimer's diagnosis seems to be turmoil. What is the first reaction and response when you get such news?
Wow, well, thank you. First of all, thank you, Dr. Angelica, for having me on tonight and for inviting me to speak on this really, really important issue. It's been extremely close to my heart ever since I was 13 and I got my first job in an old people's home. That's what we called it back then. And I witnessed how all of these extraordinary souls, or these beautiful people who had contributed so much to life, lived such rich lives and experiences, seemed to be diminished. They seemed to be diminished and forgotten and treated almost as if they were a chore that needed to be completed in the day. Have you fed them? Have you cleaned them? Have you moved them? And it broke my heart. It really did. And ever since then, the conversation about aging has been extraordinarily important to me. And as you introduced, I got really intimate with this journey 3 years ago when my mum, Jane, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And to your question, which is, well, what is the first reaction and response to this life-changing and heartbreaking piece of information that comes to you? Well, the first response is dread, because there is so much stigma around this disease. There's so much stigma in the conversation about cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. And so the temptation is to take this diagnosis and say, well, there we are then, that's your lot. Now it's time to go and sit in the corner and just wait for death. It's going to be slow, it's going to be agonizing, and it's going to be profoundly sad. And that's how the narrative is around Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. And so that's the first reaction, is to respond to the common conversation, the conversation that we know about Alzheimer's, which is that it's a terrible, terrible disease. The first reaction. But this is important. Remember that a reaction is different from a response.
Yeah.
A reaction is involuntary. That's you get the 3D, the manifest trigger, which is the diagnosis. And then you have an emotional reaction, which is the sense of dread, the sense of loss, of mourning. And then you have, after your emotional reaction, you then have a mental reaction.
Yeah.
This is where your reason kicks in. This is where you have the opportunity to choose. Do I continue with this cycle into my response, or do I now create a new conversation? So at that point, it's very tempting to begin in the mental world to begin talking about, well, how are we going to prepare for death? How are we going to prepare for decline? How are we going to, what's the point in me if I'm not really present? And honestly, we had been watching my mum change for a few years without really being able to put our finger on what is occurring. And that's the thing about Alzheimer's, that it is progressive.
Oh, yeah.
You don't always know what's happening until it's too late to really take major effect, or at least that's what we're told. And so it's
also something that so many people, or even the person who experiences these first memory losses and this, feeling I'm not really all that organized, or that there are just things that happen, and you say, well, it's probably a sign of aging, or so you want to push it away until somebody probably says, there is something we need to do about this. We need to find out what is really going on here.
Yes.
And then it could be already in a stage 3 of, there are certain stages. And so the earlier you catch it, the more you can do maybe to not only slow it down, but actually reverse some of it.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that's where empowerment comes in, right? So we began noticing these subtle changes in my mum, and most notably was a conversation would be completely forgotten, or you'd do something, you'd have a moment, you'd make a memory, and then it would be as if it had never occurred. And then that's those are the first sort of signs where we really start thinking this is a cognitive issue. This is to do with the brain. But it's more than just memory as well. That's the thing about Alzheimer's. It can be a little bit unpredictable how it affects you. And for my mum, she began to retreat. Her identity, her personality began to retreat, and she became a bit like an empty shell. And she would walk maybe 10 paces behind everybody else, and she would close herself off and really spiritually decline. And not only that, but her physiology shifted as well. The elimination system stopped working. So the detoxification process wasn't working as it should. And of course, all of this builds up then and in clouds. What are the real symptoms we're dealing with? What is actually the protein buildup in the brain? And what is everything else that's influencing the expression and presentation of what seems to be Alzheimer's? So by the time when we got this diagnosis, the first reaction, of course, is this, oh my gosh, here is a terminal diagnosis. And then we have the opportunity to choose how we respond. And the thing about my mum is, even though she had retreated a lot from life and wasn't really present, she was very, very vacant and very distant. There's something about the magic in a woman who has known life. In that deep down, she knew that there is only life and more life. There is no such thing as death, really, in the grand universal scheme of things. There is only life and more life. And so she chose, or we chose as a team, not to accept decline as inevitability, but to make a new agreement that life can be known in a new way. And maybe we can reverse this thing, and maybe we can't reverse this thing. But if you believe fundamentally that the universe, that God is good, then this is also good in some way. And our mission began to sort of find out, what is the magic in this new way of being, where you're not building memories anymore. You're only having moments. And so there began our response. So our reaction was, it's happened. And the response was one of empowerment and hopefulness. And there we go.
How amazing to have you as a daughter who is, I mean, it's a destiny. Nothing is by luck, but to not only help her, but yourself, but also become a teacher of something that you probably didn't plan to teach or to talk much about. even though you are a spiritual teacher, but we cannot talk about everything.
Right.
And so this became a very important part. And it is really so important because it affects hundreds of millions of people.
Yes.
You know, and nobody wants to talk about it. And the prognoses are just what everybody believes it is.
Yes.
But there is that spirit that it's just like whatever you are faced with, you have a choice how you want to see it, as an opportunity, as a challenge, as something to learn more, to make something good with, or to give up and say, poor me. You know, right. And that has a physical, sometimes my German goes in the way, a physical effect on you. I mean, your mind affects your body, it affects your chemistry, it affects everything. Yes, you know, truly. So to have that is so amazing. What role does energy and spirituality play in preventing and even living with dementia and cognitive decline? Because there is something about, we talk about Alzheimer's, but it starts with cognitive decline, and then there comes dementia. There's no clear cut between dementia and Alzheimer's, but it's kind of, it goes on that very same or parallel path, right?
That's right, yes, yeah. Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. Yeah. There are different types, and what's unique about Alzheimer's, really there's two things that characterizes. See, I'm doing my German now. Characterizes Alzheimer's. The first is that the body stops metabolizing sugar as an energy form, and instead it becomes a toxin. So that's why many doctors call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes, because the brain has no energy. It can't work because the body isn't metabolizing sugar properly. There's no glucose to fuel.
That is so important to know. You know, hardly anybody talks about it. Yeah. You know, to really understand what is going on. They just say, well, there's plaque in the brain, you know. And yes. You know,
and if you know that sugar plays a part, then you can quickly eliminate sugar from your diet and retrain your brain to use fat as a fuel instead of sugar. So we immediately started with. I'll speak a little bit more about nutrition, because I know you're big on nutrition. So I want to I'd love to get into that if we have time, but. So that's the first thing about Alzheimer's is the brain is not using its energy form, and you have to retrain your brain to use a different kind of energy. It's like
ketones, right? Ketones instead of sugar.
That's right, yeah. And the second aspect of Alzheimer's, the one that we know more, is that you get a buildup of protein in and around those beautiful neurons in the brain. You have the tau tangles, which are kind of protein that sort of builds up and creates blockages. So the electricity can't move from one part of the brain to the other part of the brain. So information gets clogged. And beta amyloids, a different kind of protein, also doing a similar sort of thing. Again, if we understand that this is happening, then it helps us remove the identity aspect from what's going. It's not me. It's not myself who's forgetting things. There is simply an electricity problem because the switch can't move because there's protein in the way. So this is where I'm going to get back to your question, which is what role does spirituality and energy play in preventing and dealing with Alzheimer's? And this is another one of those things that's not spoken about enough in the mainstream world. But if we can begin this conversation about how everything is energy, and all healing is about moving energy, transforming energy, that gives us an enormous amount of empowerment. And the question of spirituality, because your spirituality really is your relationship with all that is. It's the question, who am I really? That's your spirituality. Who am I?
Yes.
And if your identity, if your sense of self, your inner spiritual relationship with all that is seen and unseen, if that is loving and self-accepting, then you can start a new life with Alzheimer's and see it as a handicap, not as a problem with you. You can see it. It's no different than if you were paralyzed and needed a wheelchair. You have a handicap and you need to make certain changes in your lifestyle to accommodate that handicap. With no pride, right? With just be humble enough to accept that we all have handicaps and privileges, and this is mine. And but if you have a spirituality that is condemning, a spirituality that attaches your worth, your validity, your purpose to the workings of the world, then you stand to lose it all the moment you fall behind. And so spirituality, the way that you anchor your sense of self into this world, is the key to whether or not you will be able to live harmoniously with Alzheimer's. And one thing that my mum has done, which is just fantastic, is that she doesn't really say Alzheimer's very much. She says, my friend Al, which actually humanizes the disease.
Yes.
It takes it out of the who am I? It takes it out of your spirituality and turns it into something that you can relate to. It's my friend Al, and he's mischievous and he's tricky and he messes up. I don't know where I put my car keys this morning, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I don't know where my car keys are, because this is just a characteristic of a handicap that I'm living with my friend Al. So there's that. Now, so that's spirituality, and that's what keeps you anchored in life. When you have a purpose that is anchored in life, that's one thing. And then if you can start using energy in a beneficial way, both in terms of your personal energy, how you get through the day, but also to direct that life force energy in such a way that it softens the tension, it softens the resistance. It can even soften the hardness of that plaque buildup and make it more possible for the brain to detox those excess proteins and restore communication.
Yes. I mean, as you said, and it's well known, and we so often forget that everything is energy. Everything is really neurons, kind of. Our whole life is made of atoms, neurons, frequencies, and of course our mind, which has, depending on how we think, what do we say, has a particular frequency, and to use that. Have you used certain phrases or affirmations or anything like this with your mom as well, to maybe get into friend, my friend Al's the tricky purse to see?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. We have. When the moment we got this diagnosis, after the initial reaction had sort of subsided a little, and we chose to take an empowered response, the first thing we did was to gather a team. So close friends, close family, doctors, nutritionists, people who would support our chosen path. And we got clean on the nutrition, and we also got into an energy doctor. And so we began a protocol of energy work, both to detox and rehabilitate the brain, because yes, you can actually be so precise with your energy work that you can use it in precision medical.
Focus on something very specific.
Exactly. So we used the energy work to detox, rehabilitate the brain, to restore connection between the body and the brain, to restore communication between the brain and the legs, to open up the elimination channels that were failing, and to recreate new pathways in the body. And also, of course, to train the body to use fat instead of sugar for the brain. So all of this energy work played a huge role. In fact, my mum and my sister and me would sit for 2 hours a night in the conservatory in the Orangery in her house in England with some beautiful music on, with some chamomile tea, and would go through that protocol, that energy work protocol, every single night for 6 months. So this is why it's so important to have a team. because on your own, it's very hard to stick to something like that, to stay in hope. But with a team, we build each other up. And that energy work, this is where I'm gonna start bragging a little bit. But that energy work, mixed with a spiritual approach to what her core values were. So instead of what's important to the world, what's important to me, what matters most to me, and storytelling. We did a lot of storytelling, sharing stories about her real magical life. And all of these things completely turned around who she was and where she was going. So you remember I said she had vacated the building. She had become, a vacant shell, really. Well, that's not who she is today. She is vibrant, she is present, she's excited, she knows who she is, she knows what she wants, and she can't remember what you told her yesterday. And it doesn't matter, because here we are today. And my mum's philosophy in life is, I think everybody needs this philosophy in life, that it is this moment that matters. Here now it matters. And just to be able to have witnessed that extraordinary transformation in my mum, and to know that it was attributed to holistic nutrition, to energy work, prayer, and togetherness. Right? Togetherness was very important. That's incredible. And that's a message I want to give to everybody, whether you have Alzheimer's or cognitive decline or not. Your life is rich and you are worthy, and there is a place for you here. And in fact, I'm rambling on. You may have more questions.
No, please.
But your aliveness is proven in your senses. Right? It's not your memory. It's not knowing what happened yesterday. That's not what proves your aliveness. It's your sensory experience of right now. And so another secret trick that we used was to really enhance that sensory experience. When you taste something, really taste it. When you smell something, really smell it.
So intensify your senses.
Right. Dial the resolution all the way up in your life. Helen Keller, she was a very famous blind and deaf child, and grew up into a woman. And my grandmother had the honor of working with Helen Keller. Well, Helen Keller said very famously, smell, and I'm paraphrasing, but she said, smell, the olfactory sense, is the most magic thing at all, because with just a whiff, you can be transported across time and space. For example, you can be grumbling along as you walk along, you're grumbling all angry with yourself, and then you smell freshly cut grass and something changes in you and your whole world changes.
And I believe you remember things from the past, and maybe things that you don't, if somebody would ask you, do you remember when you were 5 years old or whatever, they say, not so much, but smell something that your memory remembers from that time of your life, and it's right there.
There it is.
Yes,
it's all of a sudden there it is. That's your limbic system at work. Your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts are all tangled up in your limbic system, and you can train your limbic system. You can, for example, you train your body to know that when you smell frankincense, you elevate. And one thing we started doing was choosing certain oils for certain things. So if my mother's energy started depleting, we would use frankincense and orange to bring her energy back. Or when she struggled to feel calm, when she felt restless, we would use valerian and lavender to help her whole being go back into rest and into calm poise.
It brings it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system rather than the sympathetic. Yes. I have a question. Have you heard about, because I don't know, Dr. Sears Institute is in Florida. I know you live in Florida, right? I have been a student of his academy for quite a while. I've also been a patient of his. And hyperbaric chambers and actually oxygen therapy. Have you done anything with that? Because it's become so, I became so much aware of it again by going through my studies and also finding that our oxygen level of our entire world. Our world's oxygen level has been dropping 30% and is going down.
Wow.
And this could also be one cause that Alzheimer's and many other degenerative diseases are coming up more and more, because it's not only the stress that we don't breathe properly anymore, there's actually less oxygen in the air. And of course, we're also cutting down trees all over the world. And there is so many things that pollution is a big culprit. So I became very much interested again, the connection of oxygen, and even if it's not the chamber, the hyperbaric chamber, but just breathing, knowing how to breathe properly and filling yourself and going outside more. Don't sit inside so much. Those things, and maybe even breathing oxygen maybe once a week, just from an oxygen tank. These could be preventive things, or also things that we can be aware of and just check ourselves. Am I breathing? Because when we get stressed, we don't breathe anyway, or we breathe very shallow.
Yes, that's right. I mean, the breath of life, or prana, as it's known in many alternative languages, the prana of life, the Holy Spirit of life, the inspire and expire, keeps us very grounded here in life, doesn't it? And we didn't do any of the hyperbaric chambers. We didn't do that modality, but breath was a part of it. And in fact, our the brain expert that we worked with, Dr. Ernesto Fernandez in Sarasota, absolutely phenomenal. One of the exercises that he prescribed, one of the exercises he prescribed is called the bioenergetic grounding technique, where you breathe very mindfully up and through the spine while you're in a bent over position, and it forces all this oxygen into the brain, and it also forces a spiritual grounding, an bioenergetic grounding into your body and into your life.
You're actually bending forward while you do the breathing?
You're bending forward and you're breathing as if you're breathing in through the root chakra, up the spine, into the brain, and then you're breathing as if you're breathing back out again, like that, while your legs are held in a specific position. See, there are many easy exercises that you can do that actually restore the connection between the brain and the rest of the body.
So for anybody, even for those who just have brain fog a lot, or who, you don't have to wait until you're diagnosed with anything.
Extraordinary. I mean, watching my mum on the table at the doctor's clinic, and he's muscle testing. He's testing the strength of her legs. He's testing the strength of her hips. He says, this is very weak. What has the weakness or the strength of your legs got to do with Alzheimer's? A lot, because the brain is the piece of information that tells your body what to do and how to move. Yes. And with a couple of simple energy techniques, he shifted the way the brain was communicating with the legs, and suddenly her strength increased. Mm-hmm. This is a woman who would run out of energy around 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So she'd wake up at 7, and about 12 or 1 o'clock, it's over. Now it's just go and sit and wait for the evening and hopefully try and sleep. Now her energy lasts until 10 o'clock at night. So she has a full day, just like everybody else. But if you don't know this, if you've got your piece of paper and it says Alzheimer's, and then you notice that you're retreating into yourself, and then you notice that your energy is vanishing, and you don't have the awareness that your body is full of heavy metals. Maybe your body is full of metals from your fillings, heavy metals, or heavy metals even from the pollution in the air. Mold in the brain is a huge influencing factor. But if you don't know these things, and you don't know that you can change your energy levels, and all you experience is decline, then that's the way you're going. You're going to decline. Yeah. But if you have awareness.
So it's really clean up your environment, clean up your home, change your diet, also your personal products that you use, are they toxic? I just had a class about that, about toxicity in your environment and how easy it is, because it's just everywhere. That's just the cleaning material, you know. But no, you have to make a better choice if you want to really eliminate all of these toxins that are rising. And it affects, it's not only Alzheimer's, it's all kinds of diseases that are linked to heavy metal in your blood, in your organs, in your brain, everywhere. So I know this sounds so scary, it is scary, but then the good news is that we have things that we can change. We can make changes in our environment. We can make changes in our way of thinking, and we can get information and meet in groups, how we can teach each other or those and bring different geniuses into a group where we have a more and more holistic view and approach to something that is quite scary. Yes. So in the last 30 seconds, Elizabeth, what would you, the one thing that you want to leave our audience with?
Wow. If I'm only allowed one thing, then this is the thing that I'm going to leave the audience with, which is that there's hope. There is hope. And you are in the presence of life and life abundantly. You are allowed to choose your life path with or without the afflictions that the universe seems befitting to us. You are allowed to choose a positive, empowered life path, but choose a team, bring a team in that's aligned to your core values. That's the number one thing I would say. And then, and be in that team, knowing your life and your vitality. That's what I want to leave. And I think that's a message, not just for those with cognitive decline, but for all of us, that here and now, this is the good life.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I need to have you on again for another time.
Thank you. I would love to come again.